Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. I'm Kamarul Arieffin from Product Certification Section, SIRIM QS, and today I'll be giving a little bit of presentation on environmental labels and declaration, pre-recording. Normally, I would prefer to use a live presentation, but however, during the time of presentation, most likely I'll be at home and the internet connection at home can be unstable, a little bit unstable. There's so many people at home. So this is the only way for a smooth presentation, but I will be available during Q&A session later on this presentation. Okay, so let's begin. The topic is environmental labels and declaration. Let me share to you my slide. I've prepared a few slides so that I can explain the matter more clearly. Okay, I hope everybody can see the slide. Okay, let us begin. So this is the outline of the presentation. Because of the time constraint, there will be a short presentation only, and just only a little bit of topic there. The first will be the introduction on environmental label and declaration. So this is like environmental label and declaration 101, a quick one. Because you need to know what these environmental labels and declaration before you can proceed to deep dive into this matter. Orang kata tak kenal maka tak cinta. So the next topic is the type of environmental labels and declaration. There are a few types. I will explain a little bit about what types are there in the market, and green procurement. And lastly, on the SIRIM eco-labeling certification scheme process type 1. Since we have a few types, so I will just give an example. One of the type that normally we will be using, which is eco-labeling type 1. Okay, what is environmental labels and declaration? The keyword is LCA, life cycle assessment. Environmental label is a part of life cycle assessment. This is the major difference between the eco-label product and self-claimed green product out there. Now, I will use the word eco-label in this presentation a lot. Remember this word, eco-labeling. In eco-label, the environmental impact of the product throughout its life cycle from cradle until the disposal or grave will be considered. While self-claim, normally the environmental impact is only on the product. The material, the process may not be considered. You may have a claim that saying their product is good for the environment, but the process making is harmful to the environment. In picture, generally it will involve three concepts: the raw material, process, and also the green product. So in the raw material, normally it has to comply with the environmental criteria, and the process has to comply with the regulatory requirement and also the environmental requirement. And lastly, the green product has to be tested for the performance and environmental criteria. Right? In this presentation, I will mention the green product, but doesn't mean the color is green. Yeah, it's a commonly used term for sustainable or eco-friendly product. So I will use repeatedly in this presentation. And when I use the term product, it's also referred to services, not only a physical product, but also services. ISO defined product is product, the actual product, and also services. Okay, environmental label. What is environmental label? Environmental label is a tool, same like the label on your product or clothes. It will give you some information about what is the product is made of, the content of the product, or even benefit of the product. In the case of environmental label, it gives you the environmental characteristic information about your product or services. Same like labels on your clothes, but it will give you information on the environmental attribute that the product carries. For example, if you want to have a claim that your product is having low VOC, volatile organic compound, this is the best way to do so. You can affix the claim on your product saying that it is low VOC. Not only that, but other claims like source, like sustainable wood made from recycled plastic. Yes, you can literally print it out on the product saying it has been verified. So on the topic of environmental label integration, we'll be using the ISO standards. There are few standards that's covering this topic. Okay, according to ISO, There are a few standards that are related to environmental label and declaration. Actually, there are a lot more standards applicable to this topic, like the ISO 14040 series, like the ISO 14040, General Principle of LCA, Life Cycle Assessment, ISO 14044, Requirement and Guideline, and also ISO 14067, the Greenhouse Gas Quantification. But all those standards are the supporting standards that will be used for the main standard that I've highlighted in red. Those are the main standard for environmental labels and declaration. There are generally three types. Type 1 for ISO 14024, this is a third-party eco-label. ISO 14021, Type 2, informative environmental or self-declaration claim. And Type 3 will be ISO 14025, will be environmental declaration. The other standard, like ISO 14020, is just the general principle for the ISO 14020 series. And ISO 14026 is a communication of the footprint information, and ISO TS 14027 is to develop the product category rules, that will be used in ISO 14025 Type 3. Yes, it can be a little bit confusing using all those ISO standards, but generally, the only thing that you need to remember is there are three main types of environmental labels and declaration: Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3. So this is the example, right, of the type of eco-label. We can have a Type 1, it's a third-party certification using the ISO 14024. We have example here from SIRIM, and we have our neighbor there from Taiwan. They have their own labels. Type 2 is a self-declared. Generally, you can do eco-labeling using a self-declared method, and you can literally create your own labels that can be affixed to the product or the services. But it has to following the ISO 14021 principle. Yeah? And last is the Type 3, this environmental declaration using ISO 14025. This is more into business to business. Sometimes you will hear the word EPD, Environmental Product Declaration. That is related to 14025 or Type 3 eco-label. Okay, first we go to the Type 1 eco-label, ISO 14024. It is the most popular type in Malaysia. It's a third-party eco-labeling, and SIRIM has been running this program since the early 2000s. You can differentiate this type with other type of eco-label in the market using this logo at the bottom right of the screen, the one with the green leaves. Yeah? If you can see this mark on product or services, meaning that it has been certified under Type 1 eco-label by SIRIM. So generally, it is a voluntary basis, but sometimes it will be made mandatory by some regulator. For example, if you are in KL, Wilayah Persekutuan Territories, the plastic bag, the one that you buy your groceries in the shopping market, the plastic bag has to be eco-label certified. That is made mandatory by the regulator. So it has to be biodegradable and compostable. But generally, it's a voluntary basis, but can be made mandatory by some regulators. It's generally a third-party program, the award license, which authorizes the use of environmental labels claimed on the product. For example, the mark we can give the applicant that been certified under eco-label Type 1 to use our SIRIM eco-labeling mark on their product or services. Okay? And then the environmental label claim indicate overall environmental preferability of product, which particular product category, based on life cycle consideration and use of product criteria document or PCDs as a standard for certification or compliance. So PCDs is another standard that will be used for a third-party certification under Type 1. So it has all the requirements, what they need to do, what they need to comply with if they want to have this certification under Type 1. Okay, next is ISO 14021 Type 2. This is self-declared claim. So the declaration have to be verifiable, accurate, and not misleading. You can use the use of symbol and statement that you can create by yourself, but has to be verified, especially on the statements. Environmental claims made by a company are often difficult to verify. Yes, sometimes if you want to make your product to be claimed as compostable, you need to know which standards, because it has to be verified and comply to a certain international standard. Evaluation methodology, comparative claim method, access to information has to be reliable and accurate. Third-party services in evaluation and method validation for the environmental claim and provide reliable conformity assessment and advisory is good. Right? Although it's a self-declared, but if you use a third party to verify, for example, if you send your product to be tested by a third party, that will be better. Right? So if you want to have a self-declared without a third-party verification, it is possible, but it has to be according to ISO 14001 requirement. Okay, the third and the last type of eco-label is environmental declaration. So primarily it's intended to use in business-to-business communication. However, it can also be used for business-to-consumer, but generally it's between business-to-business. Declaration to show quantified environment information on the life cycle of product enable comparison between similar product. Useful when fulfilling regulatory requirements and business-to-business communication, commonly known as EPD, Environmental Product Declaration or Product Data. Use of product category rules as standard for certification and compliance. Same like the Type 1, but Type 1 are using PCDs, Product Criteria Document, but for Type 3, they use the PCR, Product Category Rules, as a standard for compliance. So those are three types of eco-label that you need to know. The general type of eco-labeling, environmental label. So remember the word eco-labeling that I mentioned earlier? So normally for environmental label and declaration, we call it eco-labeling. Type 1 and Type 2 is environmental label. Type 3 is environmental declaration. That's why they call it environmental labels and declaration. So normally the labeling will refer to the Type 1 and Type 2, and Type 3 will be more into declaration. Okay, what are the benefits for this eco-labeling? So today it can help business to create their own environmental effectively and accurately describe their product in a way that instill loyalty in the consumer. For the consumer, it can provide clear and accurate that can be easily compared with other products and services. And also for the regulators, it create public policy that meet international commitment, in addition to helping them establish and measure criteria for environmental related incentive scheme. Now, the next topic is green procurement. So when we talk about eco-labeling, it will directly involve green and sustainable procurement or purchasing. You cannot run away from green procurement. So sustainable procurement, according to ISO 20400, is procurement that has the most positive environmental, social, and economic impact possible over the entire life cycle. Again, the word is life cycle. Not only the product, but the life cycle of the product, cradle to grave. When purchasing a product, it has to be green all the process. We don't want the product to be green, but the process of manufacturing it will pollute the environment. So it has to be towards the whole life cycle of the product, from the raw material, the processing, and also the product itself. So generally, sustainable procurement can be divided into two main procurement. Green private procurement or GPP, or the green government procurement or GGP. Okay, next slide. Okay, green private procurement is initiated by private organization. Normally it's on voluntary basis. It can be from big corporation to a small company or your home or even yourself. Probably you want to set a certain purchasing in your house that cleaning product need to be biodegradable. Plastic that you buy for garbage need to be compostable. For a corporation, you can have your own list of product or even service that wish to buy that need to be sustainable. For example, like SIRIM, we have set a criteria that some product or services in our procurement, priority will be given to sustainable product that have eco-labeling mark, like paper, electrical appliances, air conditioners, paint. You can start small within yourself to your company level. Right? So for the next one, for the government green procurement, it's a sustainable procurement initiated by the government or the public authorities. And basically, it's a voluntary basis, generally, but not necessarily. It's practiced all over the world. For example, like we have in the EU, they have Communication 400 2008 that says that at least 50% of public tender will be endorsed the GPP criteria. Then we have countries like Japan, Korea, all over the world. They have been practicing the government green procurement. Even in Malaysia, we are not left out. We have been starting this from the previous RMK, now continue to the RMK 12. In Malaysia, we call it Green Government Procurement or GGP. So on the local screen, GGP in Malaysia will be handled by Malaysian Green Tech Technology and Climate Change Center or Green Tech Malaysia. They are promoting the MyHijau mark, a program that brings together certified green services under a single mark. Certification eco-labeling is prerequisite in obtaining the MyHijau mark. So basically, the GGP in Malaysia, the product that been procured by the government, there are about 40 categories of product that been listed in the government policies. When they want to procure the product or services, it has to be green, it has to be certified under MyHijau and also eco-labeling. So if you are the company or the product or the services being certified under SIRIM eco-label, so generally it can be certified under the MyHijau, and so it can be in the GGP program. So this is on the government green procurement in Malaysia, GGP. Okay, since the main type of eco-label nation is type 1, remember, ISO 14024, type 1, I will be explaining a little bit more about type 1 eco-label that SIRIM operate. Why do we need to have this type of eco-labeling? First, to support the implementation of private or government green procurement. With higher marks if you obtain eco-label. Secondly, is to provide third-party independent verification of the environmental claim on the product, increase marketability of the product to environmental conscious consumer, improve the company brand image as an organization that produce environmental preferable goods and services, and lastly, to improve environmental conservation and protection. This is the most important part. Okay, how we do the certification? Remember, type 1 and type 2 and type 3, they have their own certification process or declaration process. So now I'm just explaining the type 1, the example of eco-labeling. First, it has to comply with the SIRIM criteria or the PCDs. Remember the PCDs under type 1? Requirement. Inside the PCD, there are a few requirements that says what they need to comply, what they need to do for them to get the certification. They also need to comply with product performance standard and specification, because we don't want to have a green product that comply with the PCD requirement, but it cannot be used. For example, we don't want to have a paint, a paint or a coating that is green. It can comply with the PCD requirement, but after you apply it, once it is raining, it will be washed away. No, it also needs to perform as it is designed to. It has to comply with all the relevant authorities' requirement. For example, like you have in Malaysia, you have to comply with the licensing, you have to comply with the EQA 1974 in terms of the environment and all other applicable authorities' requirement. And implement acceptable quality management system. When I say acceptable quality management system, it doesn't have to be ISO 9001 certified, as long as they have proper recording, proper QC check, how they ensure that the product or services is complying to the standard, performance of the product standard, and also the PCD requirement, that will be sufficient. Okay, the certification process will involve a few steps. Step 1 will be the application, where they submit all the application form, all the information about the product, the testing and everything. Then we will do the evaluation. There are two types of evaluation. First will be the factory audit. And second will be evaluation on the product. The product evaluation normally it will be involve product testing to a third-party lab. The next step will be the approval. If everything comply, then we will go to the next step will be licensing. And so this is the pre-certification stage. Then after post-certification stage, when they get the license, we will do the surveillance audit. It will be every 2 years. We will conduct the surveillance audit at the factory that manufactured the product or the services. This is the post-certification stage. After the licensing, we'll do the factory and market surveillance. And then if it's comply, then we will do the renewal and the process will be repeated as long as they wish to be certified. If during the factory and market surveillance, they are non-compliant, the license will be suspended and they will need to come up with a corrective action plan. And if it's complied, then we will renew it. And again, the process will be repeated. If not, they will do the revocation of the license. So this is the example of eco-labeling mark and license under type 1 of eco-label. You can see this mark on the product or on the brochure of the product or services. So when you see this mark, you can rest assured the product has complied with the type 1 eco-label. So let's go a little bit about this mark. You can see the mark, the marking of the what we call it a top SIRIM top mark. It's look like a top, a gasing. And then they have some leaves inside of there. The word SIRIM and the word, this is the example, the environmental claim. Remember when I said it is environmental label? So this is the environmental label or environmental claim of this product. For example, like Eco 001. This is the criteria number. This is for plastic, compostable plastic. So they want to say say that the product is compostable. So this is an environmental claim. They can put it on the product itself. They can print it on the product itself together with the standard number. The PCD number will be Eco 001 2018 and the certificate number. So every applicant is they have their own certificate number and is unique to the previous to their respective respective applicant. So in SIRIM, we have environmental sustainability assessment. We have a complete package in SIRIM. Now everyone is talking about ESG, so this is our ESG, what you call verification or assessment. We have the LCA and carbon footprint advisory and the SIRIM IR industrial research. Then we have the laboratory to do the testing and verification. Then we have SIRIM QAS to do the eco-labeling, for example, under type 1 and under type 3 will be carbon footprint certification. And we have also the green criteria development, the PCR development in SIRIM. So this is what we can offer under ESG in SIRIM. So with that, I would like to thank you for your full attention. So if there's anything that you would like to ask, you can ask me later during the Q&A session, or you can't remember anything now, too much information. If something pop up later on, you can always call me, email us those questions. So I think that's it for me. So I will do so. Thank you very much. I hope to see you again in the Q&A session.